Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here, along with Erika Wells Cox. She's, I sent Rogan a WhatsApp,
Or how is she?
but she hasn't responded.
Oh,
I mean, I just sent it. It isn't like I sent it a million years ago. So I don't know how she's doing, but we'll double check that out. But so hopefully she's doing well. She had some shoulder surgery. I have a rough. So I think I gotta get. I've never had surgery. I think I'll just get some surgery. You know. You ever had surgery, Kendrick? You did. What kind of surgery?
ooh.
I have a he said Achilles tendons, ladies and gentlemen. I have I strained mine. I didn't tear it to where it was like painful, but it never really recovered. And now I have that thing called plantar something.
Oh, wow.
In fact, I just got that. Well, that just started happening, but it's that's why I have these insoles now.
It's very painful.
You have that?
No.
It's when you get up in the morning and then you walk like a couple feet. You have it if you have it. You still have that? An Achilles, that's a rough surgery, man.
Isn't the recovery
does it go?
rough?
What are you showing me? Shoes?
The scar.
Okay. What's that?
You should get therapy for that, Ed.
You can, yeah, I mean, I got this thing now where you can put on, it's like a stocking at night that stretches it. It's a weird thing. It's a weird thing that stretches your foot, and it works because what happens is it's to do with weight. If you're putting excess weight on your foot, so this new shoe, invented by Vasily.
Oh, interesting.
The I think it's called Vioxx. I forget what it's called. Anyway, they have this slipper, and basically your foot is tilted forward. So rather than leaning back on your heel, you're actually on the balls of your feet.
Right.
So it's not as much strain on your heels, which I guess is more natural.
Yeah, runners get that, and it could knock you out.
It could knock you. Mama gonna knock you out. And but you get up and then you walk around. It's okay.
Right.
And then when you wake up, it's like, geez, I didn't know it was happening, but then apparently, this is a common thing. And I was in the store trying to get this thing because my daughter has it as well. She plays sports. She wears cleats and stuff. So I was trying to get this thing she had told me, which I've gotten. It's like a stocking, like a big sock with a thing in the front that you pull up to pull your foot toward you. And you sleep in that.
Is it comfortable?
Yeah, it's not uncomfortable.
Okay.
It's a,
Kind of like life.
yeah, no, it's not uncomfortable. I mean, I could sleep in it.
Right. Okay.
And while I was walking around, I was asking the lady at the counter about it, and another lady comes and she goes, "I know what you have." I said, "Pardon?" And she said, "You have plantars, whatever the name is." And she says, what you should do is get a bottle, like a water bottle, the ones you, like a bicycle,
Yeah.
the things. You always get the souvenirs.
Freeze it.
Freeze it. You know about this?
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't have it, but it's a common injury among runners. And
That's what she says. She's a coach.
Right. And
She's a coach.
It is.
And you roll your foot over it, and it
can
helps.
knock you out. Yeah, while you're at your desk.
Yeah.
And if anyone feels a twitch of it, they get very panicky because it could not, it could have you off the road for months.
Oh, if you're a runner.
If you're a
Oh,
runner,
well, I'm
yeah.
not a runner, so that doesn't. I don't care about that. I'm a driver.
But still, it's painful.
It's painful in the morning.
Right.
And then it goes. It's like the first 5 steps. Literally, it's like the first 5 steps, and then it's okay. Like when you warmed it up or whatever.
Right.
But it's becoming more annoying to me. Anyway, I have the slippers now. I got them yesterday.
Good.
So I can feel it, not now, but I can. The other thing is, if you have this, you shouldn't walk barefoot, apparently, like at home on hard surfaces and stuff. So my person, Linlow, was telling me, just always wear your slippers.
Your person. Okay.
My person friend, Lynn. So she does therapy on me and stuff. I didn't know I wanted to say that. It sounds very kind of bourgeois or whatever. But anyway, so I'd rather say person.
Okay, that's fine.
So why am I talking about this?
Well, I think we started on the shoulder and the surgery.
Oh, the surgery. So I got to have some surgery. Okay?
Although I don't think that requires surgery.
Well, he had Achilles.
Right.
But this, I don't know if you can fix this with surgery.
No, I don't think so.
So anyway, now
But we hope that Rogan is doing well.
Yes, that's what it's all
That's
about.
how we started.
why anyway? It's just anyway. I'm tired, man. All right, so we got another advisory out. We have two.
Two.
It seems like we have. One is a little kind of weird. It's like at a particular bar.
Right.
Like the whole United States is being advised, don't go to this bar.
Right.
But anyway, I'm not
Wonder
gonna get
how
on
they
that.
feel about that.
Yeah.
The owners, anyway.
I thought it was closed, and then all of a sudden I saw this kind of like barbecue thing happening.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is I don't know if it's real about an advisory about a march. Well, that means if advisories all over the states, they're marching every single day. Anyway, listen. Fortunately, people don't freak out. They don't freak out. So it's more the look than anything else.
Right.
I'm tired of press. I'm tired of the whole, just the whole messaging. Mm-hmm. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand.
The whole messaging and the whole approach to things. It's not, and I'm not talking just about this, right? Look, I want you to call me on this. You can. When I say call me, I mean call me out on this. Kendrick, you feel free to do as well. I don't feel that I'm giving wrong messages. I don't feel like I'm creating havoc.
Right. Do you think the rest of the media feels like it's creating havoc?
No, I don't think they feel like it, but I
Right.
think they
But
are.
you think
So
they are.
that's why I'm questioning. It's like saying, "Do you have bad breath?" And you need someone else to say it
Right.
to you. I don't think I have bad breath, but hey, your mouth smells like a sewer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but no one thinks it what they're doing. That's the thing. They're not thinking
Right.
what they're doing. And the thing is, what is the objective? Because my thing is, you can achieve the same objective without creating havoc. Now, some people feel like, well, you get. Well, let me adjust that. It depends on how far down the road you are in terms of desperation.
Okay.
So if you're in, I don't know, Vietnam or Uganda, and you're being tortured, then there's a certain level of response that may be justified
Okay.
because it's almost like a self-defense mode.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
But if it's about, and I'm going to use this word loosely, democracy and process, there's another way, because to me, democracy and process is about people power, numbers, and people willing to do something.
Right.
And it seems to me that if you're not cautious on how you want to bring people to that cause, you end up diluting the potential of that power. Does that make any sense?
It does make sense, but I think you have to ask, when you talk about the local media in this case and how they're dealing with this particular issue, you have to ask then, what is their purpose? What level of responsibility do they have to?
Well, I think there's a range of things, I mean, some people it's just passion, Listen, I'm not dismissing the need for passion.
Right.
You cannot be dispassionate,
Right.
but you have to
We have to be responsible.
filter your
Right.
passion.
Right.
You can't yell fire.
Correct. I
That's
agree.
that's the thing, right? You can't be in the movie theater and yell fire.
Right. I think it's a difficult thing to balance in media.
Yeah.
Right? I think you want to get across the importance of the issue, but you don't want to overreact or be irresponsible to cause people to behave in a certain way.
I would make you, yeah, exactly, and I would make you a bet that post the Trump election, I will make you a bet that ratings have plummeted on TV news. It
But
may
why
not
do you
be
think that is? You think it's people
Because-
don't trust the news anymore, or because they're just sick of it, or?
because I think a certain realization of you people didn't really do me a service.
Right.
Either way, I'm not putting sides.
Right.
That
right.
you really didn't do. You weren't Walter Cronkite.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. Even from a personal perspective, you go, should I even listen to what you're saying? Is your opinion something that I can trust?
You and I are in the same kind of boat politically, philosophically, right? So we went to our place of solace,
Yes.
MSNBC.
Yes.
That's where we went. The other people, they went to their place of solace, Fox.
Right.
We're not interested. I mean, they're both full of malarkey. That's the only word I
Right.
can use.
But I rather deal with
My malarkey
right, exactly.
than your malarkey.
Yes.
Okay? So we're in an echo chamber. We're just going like,
Which is
boy,
fine.
I look good. You literally sort it out.
Tell me what I want to hear.
Exactly. You literally sort it out. Okay? And so, you're not doing yourself disservice. So I think people have just said, that's it. I'm not interested anymore. I can't. Even the people who are giving me solace, they're full of crap.
Right. It's very interesting you should say that, Ed, because I've been now trying to figure out where can I just get just straight news from. I don't want any, just give me the facts. I don't want anybody's opinion in a certain boundary.
Right.
Right? So where I would normally go to, even the New York Times,
Well, they say they want to revisit their whole approach because they were just, it was all opinion.
and the backlash was incredible
Yeah.
from what I understand.
That's what I'm saying. I would guarantee you that the viewership, the listenership, the readership has plummeted.
Well, it's
post-election.
interesting. The Times is saying that their digital subscriptions have shot way up since
Yeah.
the election.
Yeah, that's
so
what they
it's
say.
just
Yeah,
it's-
I wonder what the net effect is. Anyway, we're going to take a break. We'll come right back. Our guest this afternoon is going to be Timothy Ingram, who's the president, leader, managing director, something of Summit Insurance. We'll talk about insurance. As I told him, I was on the way here. I said, and that's a wonderful subject, but we'll spice it up. He's kind of come on. It's a lot of interesting stuff. There's fun stuff.
and insurance, about
Oh yeah,
insurance.
there's fun stuff. There's stuff I can't even tell you about the insurance
Well, I
world.
can't wait.
Yeah, but so every now and again, Kendrick decides to participate. It's
I'm
kind
always
of
so
like
happy when he
it's
does.
like an electrical impulse hits him, and then boom. And now you're showing me this thing, Kendrick. What is it? Because he finds it amusing. It's now black. It's a black screen, so that's not going to help me much. I think you hit the off button on the screen. Did you?
There we go.
Okay. So, and I hate to even read. I would hate to see what the story is. Man arrested on animal cruelty charges after riding horse from South Carolina to Florida. Now, what was the first paragraph, Kendrick? You're gonna have to go on mic on this. I can't see it. Let me see. Hold on. A man was arrested. I can read pretty good. Bring it back. You go down. Yeah. A man was arrested on animal cruelty charges in Miami, so he made it on Wednesday after riding his horse nearly 700 miles from his home in South Florida, Key West. Key West. He just couldn't go anymore because he probably would have ended up in Nassau. Christopher Emerson, 38, was arrested as he rode his horse Trigger on a busway in Miami, ABC affiliate, blah blah blah. Emerson, who kicked off his journey to South Florida of more than 4 months, was from Greenwood, South Carolina, and been going through a rough patch. This is what happens, boy. The brothers around here just walk.
Right.
A rough patch with his wife. Had a divorce, wrecked my truck. So he wanted a fresh start. But his mode of transport did not sit well with passers-by along his journey, let alone Trigger. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. I don't think so Trigger was found with low body weight and low body fat. On a scale of 1 to 10, Trigger was almost obese. Trigger registered at 3 that's when he started, I guess. So this it's not that he rode the horse. You see, this is a classic example. I'm glad you brought that up. This is a classic example. In fact, I told you I never bring up Atlantis. It's another thing.
Okay.
Atlantis data breach. We didn't breach anything.
Right.
We were breached.
Right.
But this is how they grab you. This has nothing to do with him riding his horse. If this had something to do with him riding his horse, equestrian would be outlawed. Horse and carriages would be outlawed. racing around a track at 500 miles an hour would be outlawed when the horse breaks his leg and you have to shoot him. So this has to do with the fact that he didn't feed Trigger.
Well,
because he's 3 on a scale of 1 to 10.
Right.
Okay, and Trigger was sort of as being obese when he first started. Okay. I guess he could have told him this was a diet plan. I'm trying to save Trigger's life.
But this is he was not treating the animal properly.
Properly. It had nothing to do with the writing.
Right.
So you see, we were going to go on a politically correct thing, which we would have been wrong to do because it's not about political correctness.
Right.
This is about a bad headline.
Right.
And it
got us all to read the story.
Kendrick, now you can't lie to me. You know you're famous for doing that. Did you pull that up because you saw the headline was not representative and it fed into our discussion?
No.
What's that?
No.
No, so he's telling the truth.
So you just
It
pulled
was
it up
coincidental.
because you said, wow, look at that headline.
Because people
Yeah.
can't ride horses anymore.
But that's the purpose of a headline. But
That's
it has
sad,
to be
man.
accurate. But it has to be
Oh,
accurate.
but they can they can always justify it. But I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to do the Urker words. It's bull. It is bad because you know what? There'll be people who won't read that story.
Right, they'll just see or they'll just read the headline in the first paragraph, and then that's gospel.
Okay, it's sad, and we've got to change this. And so this kind of, it's weird because we had a whole diatribe about political correctness, which was fun.
Yes.
And now we don't have that, so we're gonna have to deal with that another time. But this kind of also segues into this thing about the march.
Yeah.
Because you wonder why people are marching. And by the way, let me just say this. I would wish to encourage, because, listen, there's going to be all kind of hijackers of the reason and the purpose. But, just as a show of solidarity, if you can't or don't wish to go to the march, not everyone wants to do that, wear black tomorrow. That's passive. Okay? That's extremely passive. Most of y'all wearing black anyway. So just wash it tonight. Okay? But at least it shows that someone is listening, that everyone is listening to the message.
Right.
Okay? And it's a very, very passive show of solidarity, you boys. And, I didn't stop today. Normally I stop, so I didn't stop today. Anyway, so this march tomorrow. And again, there are a lot of passionate people out there. A lot of passionate people. And they all have a cause. Everyone has a cause. The guy who's doing the spinning, the DJ next door, he has a cause, and that is to be as loud as he can and lose his hearing. But everyone has a cause. And what you don't want to do is co-opt other people's causes.
Right.
Okay? You're certainly free to join in and to support through the people that you can bring to the table, the numbers,
Right.
okay? Because at the end of the day, we all want to be heard, but you can't all be heard at the same time. Does that make any sense?
That makes sense. Yeah,
Okay.
I agree.
So, Mr. Raynard Henfield, who was on our show? You weren't here, Erica.
No,
He was
never
on a
met
show.
him, I
Yeah,
think.
he's an interesting young fella. And he started with this community thing, R. Carmichael. And again, see, it's action.
Yep.
It's action. And, one of the things that I would always say to him, and I say to him is, you just got to be constantly weighing where you are. Don't allow other people to push you in a direction. Like, for instance, don't allow, and I'm not going to call any groups names, any one group hijack your cause because you've gotten the platform.
Right.
It's literally like you standing on the platform and someone pushes you down, and then they talk to the crowd that you have.
He's been able to build that momentum.
Right.
Right.
And the cause tomorrow, I think, is to say to people, we have the capacity to affect change. We are not here just to be spoon-fed and to wait until the crumbs are handed out to us.
Or also, I think people are calling for a certain level of accountability.
Yeah, there's a whole list of
Yeah.
things. Many of them, and I've told them, many of them I don't subscribe to in those forms.
Right.
Some of them don't even make sense in my view. That's my view.
Right.
But that's not the point. I defend the right to be able to say it.
Right, of course.
You know.
And I think once you've seen it in history, right? With the airport blockade and with people getting a sense of, oh, I stood up for something I believed in, and it caused a change. And that led to other things that eventually led to majority rule. So hopefully this will be another marker in our history.
In fact, my thing, when we first started the show, Erica, the motto, we have a motto.
Oh, I didn't know
We
that.
had a motto. I don't know if we have it anymore. Was to transform subjects to citizens. Okay. And my thing is that this is my mantra for this march. Okay, that people have to realize they are not subjects. Last week we were talking, Monday we were talking with Mr. Conley about the monarchy.
Yep.
You're a subject in a monarchy. In a democracy, you're a citizen.
Yep.
And you're actually allowed to participate. You're actually allowed to lead. You're actually allowed to initiate. You don't just sit and wait for edicts.
You can have a say.
You can have a say without being beheaded.
Right. You should have a say. I mean, I guess voting is one way to do that.
But let me tell you something. As I was saying to you off the air, my real passion, my real background is political science. And I remember when I was in college and we would be studying all of these philosophies and theories and manifestos, etc. And I'd say, why has it been that someone in the Bahamas hasn't written our manifesto for us? Because the problem is, you take these theories, you take these philosophies, and we try to we make a generic application.
Right.
And it doesn't work that way. You have different cultures. We're an archipelago. You have all sorts of things. And I think that we make the mistake, like we do for many things, of thinking that something that has been put in place is like gospel forever.
Right. Well, I mean, add change, right?
Yeah.
People are very resistant to change.
I'm going to try to, this little island boy here is going to try to put a flaw in that statement.
Okay.
We're resistant to change because we don't have a system of change. Okay? We say that, but that's because the system doesn't allow for that. Our Constitution, it literally does not allow for it.
Right. Yeah, it's very difficult.
They put in the mechanisms where you can't do it.
Right.
Okay?
But I guess initially that was thought of as protective. Right.
So, but look at the amount of change that we have had. Dramatic, seismic changes over the years.
Right.
Black president, women's votes, equal rights for gender equality and what do you call it? Sexual preference and all these same-sex marriage, all these things. They're huge changes.
Right.
So if we can adjust to these type of things, the one thing that I feel, there are a couple of things that I think hold us psychologically backward, and I know I'm going to get you a lot of flack for this one. I think that religion and government, or governance, and at one point we have to remember they were one and the same.
True.
Okay? Because why? I like Air Force One. I really do.
Explain.
I don't want to give that up.
Right.
I'm not changing that.
Right.
Okay? If I'm the guy who, put it this way. The founding fathers, right? Or whenever, I don't know, it was in the founding fathers. Someone gave the term limits. I forget when that came, but it wasn't the founding fathers, but it was way back.
It came way after, yeah.
But you know what? I bet you there was a very few amount of presidents who didn't try to go for two. Okay? All right? I mean, all of them try to go for two.
Right.
Unless they just knew they had no chance because it was so bad.
Right.
Okay? Because when you get that Air Force thing, see, you're the president, right?
Right.
All right, let's have a summit in Kuala Lumpur.
Right.
Let's go there.
Right.
You just go.
Right. Well, it's the whole power dynamic, right?
Yeah.
It must taste real good.
Listen, Air Force One?
I wouldn't know.
Listen, if you get Air Force One, you realize, you know what has to roll with Air Force One?
There's no going back after that.
When you're in Air Force One, you got fighter jets following you. You got cargo ships. What do you call it? Cargo planes taking SUVs and ambulances.
That's right.
and other planes.
Teams of people.
It's millions of. I don't want Obama coming to the Bahamas. It'll break us.
Right.
We can't afford it.
Right.
Okay. So, we got to go to the news, right? So, we'll come back and we'll talk a couple more minutes about this march. But the whole point I'm trying to make is that the power structure does not change itself. And what we have a challenge to do is to create a structure through we the people that allows for it to change itself as the need arises. We'll be right back. Good evening. For some reason, I felt like going into like a Bela Lugosi Dracula thing, but I don't know why. Ed Fields here, along with Erica Wells Cox Rogan, is recovering from surgery. Kendrick is telling us about horses that shouldn't be ridden all the way from South Carolina to Key West. And this is
Very end of the continent.
right? And this is the sad thing of people who just can't get over it, but this is love. So anyway, we're talking about, before we go on with our subject, with Mr. Timothy Ingram, whose brother, by the way, that's Wani Luthra?
Yes.
Yeah, Wani Luthra, Sean Ingram. All these community service-minded people. We'll get into it. So the thing is that this march tomorrow, folks, and I'm just going to leave it as, first of all, everyone, just if you can't make it, wear black. Timothy says he's wearing black. Is that let us look at the fact that things put in place hundreds of years ago, when they didn't have light, okay? When people couldn't write or read, when only people who had property, who had a penis could vote.
Right.
All of these way out things that when black people were 3/5 of a human being, they don't, we haven't accepted those as static.
Right.
So why are we accepting the system as it is that leaves us feeling that we're hopeless, that we don't control any part of our life, that we cannot get a pothole fixed if we want to without going through some, wizardry? We have to then figure out a way, like every business would, figure out a way to achieve the objective in a different way, in a different strategy. Democracy in its form is not sacred. The form is not sacred. The principle should be sacred, and we should be striving to that principle, but the way that it's doled out is not sacred. Now, those who benefit from it will try to give you that impression like, oh, no, you can't change the system. Yes, you can.
Right.
And even better, we can change you.
Right.
Now, having said all of that, that's pretty calm, right? Was I calm?
You were calm.
Okay. Was
You
it
were
clear?
calm. It was clear.
Okay.
Now we just have to see if people will listen.
Well, you just want them to go out tomorrow, and this is a thing. So watch this. Are you uncomfortable? Yes, you're uncomfortable.
Yes.
See that?
Yes.
You can either be yelling, right?
Yes.
You can be yelling, and what happens is you get a whole lot of people upset because they don't like that tone.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can be quiet and freak people out,
Right.
and they can't complain about tone. Okay, so I'm just saying that it's the numbers that matter, not what you say, not what you yell, not what profanity you use, not what stone you throw.
That's not effective.
That's not
actually.
effective. That's negative. That
counterproductive.
dilutes. And I'll tell you, I'm going to make this statement. If that starts, I'm heading home.
Right.
Don't want to be a part of it. So that's the way it is. Okay.
Look at the people we think about and connect with change, Gandhi and those kind of people. They were nonviolent.
You're nonviolent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Silence is very, very noisy.
Right.
Okay, so that's what we are espousing. Did I make you uncomfortable with the sound? You didn't know what was going on?
Yeah, I didn't know. Everybody was looking around like,
Didn't know what
is
was
Ed
happening?
okay?
Yeah. Okay, and in fact, the radio world, it's like a crime.
That radio
Okay.
silence.
Dead air. That's what they have a name. Dead air. That's not the name, Kendrick. Can't have it.
Nope.
Kendrick was going to go do some technical stuff. He didn't know what to do. Drop a
Commercial.
bed or something. Okay. So Timothy Ingram is here with us. This is a completely. There is no segue.
We are going to have to find a
This
way.
one, if you
What's
want.
that?
You can carry on.
Yeah,
with
well,
the discussion.
by the way, Timothy is a big social
Yeah,
activist type guy.
Community.
Don't sleep on Timothy. Don't think he just trying to insure you. There's a lot of but there are a lot of people like that
Yes.
who care.
Yeah.
And who are doing it quietly.
But it's also they have a difficulty because they can't find the way.
Yeah. And then sometimes it's frustrating working around the system to get
system.
things done. If you don't know someone, you might be trying to do all the world of good, but if you don't know the proper people to get it done, there's nowhere you can go and find a manual to tell you how to get it done.
You and I were talking before I got here and giving you instructions because no one knows what West is. But anyway, you and I were talking about, but let me just say this. I was thinking of running. I don't think I've said that on the air, so now I've said it, okay? I'm not. It's out. Finished. But if there's one thing that I was going to do, two things. There were only two things that I wanted to do because I wanted to change the system. I'm not interested in like a blue plate. By the way, everyone now has a blue plate. They change all the plates to blue.
Right. Everybody's
Okay?
a government
Everyone's good
official.
now. Okay?
So you don't know the,
Okay?
you don't know the MPs from the non-MPs.
Well, believe me, they're going to have like a purple plate. I'm changing. We can't be the same. So I only want to do two things. And if by saying this, they do it, then great. If I had won, immediately, I would have taken my salary. I would have taken the community, what is it, that constituency allotment?
Allowance.
And then there's an
Allowance, yeah.
infrastructure allotment. I think it's like $100 and something thousand. And I would have given that to a group, and I would have called that group the constituency council. And I would have convinced them somehow to find a representative from each polling division to create a constituency council.
And different sides of the political divide.
It's apolitical. Whoever wants to run for that one polling division thing,
Right.
you run for it.
Okay.
Okay? I don't care which party
So
you come
create
from.
your own local
Local
government.
government.
of sorts, yeah.
And you take that money, and if you have a pothole in your community, if you need a verge cleaned or mowed down, if you need a street sign fixed, the
Right.
things, a park mowed, the things that affect your community, you do it.
Yep.
And I would have, my job as the MP would have been to continue to find funds in the absence of a legislative or statutory funding source to find funding for you. Cookouts, challenge, whatever. We find money so we could pave our road in a square, not the shape of Texas.
Without having to go through all the crap.
Right.
Yes.
Okay?
Can I say that?
You can say crime.
Okay.
And so, and what that would have done is not only fix the pothole, but get people to realize, like, we could actually do this ourselves.
We have the
Meanwhile, you
power.
leave the MP to do things like help to create an environment for better jobs and growth, et cetera, et
Go and
cetera.
look to bring jobs into the community and that. kind of
Exactly.
thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is
So-
what their job should
So
be.
when someone comes to the MP and says, "Well, listen, my pothole isn't," let's go. You need to go to the constituency council on that.
Exactly.
They'll handle that.
Yep.
And they go out and form contracts with private sector people.
Right. But
and all
everyone
that
should
sort of
know
thing.
what number to call when there's a problem, and say, "Well, I have this pothole in my area. Could you come and fix it?"
Exactly.
The pothole patrol
And-
shows up 24 hours.
And in
later,
fact,
gets
the
it done.
community council should be the ones who are going around looking for this stuff. They shouldn't even have to call you.
Yeah.
And that
Okay.
builds community. That
Exactly.
builds community service.
And it builds community and it builds engagement.
Right.
And the second part of that would have been, I would have said, that if I had won the election, in 2021 would have been the next election, correct? No, that's wrong. 22? 22.
22.
22.
Yeah.
And I would have said, in 2021, in September, anyone who wants to challenge me to be the MP, feel free.
Right.
Okay?
Among
I would
the-
announce that right at the election, right at the beginning of the
Yeah.
what is the
term
election,
process,
2017?
yeah. Right.
That when 2021 comes,
Yep.
anyone who wants to vie to be in this seat, please do.
Right.
Okay? And when that comes, we'll have debates. We'll show my record versus what you've done. We'll do that. And if you win out, power to you.
Right.
Well, that then motivates you to make sure you continue to do what needs to be done to stay in the job.
If I want to be in the damn
If
job.
you want to be in the job, correct.
Right.
It's like in the private sector. If you contract someone to do something and there's a renewal clause,
Maybe I'm not interested in the job.
exactly.
And then, Ed, to the point that you made, I think it was Monday, it may have been off the air, then you're not parachuting into a constituency.
Yeah.
You already, you know what the needs are, you've worked with the people.
Yes.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And that's the only two things I wanted to do. And the reason why I wanted to do it, because guess what? It would have forced the other ones to do the same thing.
Right.
Right. Well, I would say continue talking about it.
Well, that's what I'm going to do.
And, you have the power to change these things
Exactly.
from the outside.
And then what you hope is that at some point, the king
Right.
gets it and goes, you know what? We better start allocating some of the property tax dollars that they spend, that they purchase, or they pay
Right.
into that funding that constituency council. And let's see how we can legislate this into whatever the deal is.
Right.
Because this is the only way,
It
is
is.
to wrest it. And see, that's nonviolent.
Yeah.
And guess what? They can't stop you.
Yep.
You can't stop you from
Yeah.
fixing and mowing the road.
Right.
Exactly. Yep.
So
And it's
It's-
in your interest. I mean, we have a neighborhood association in my area.
Right.
If we got an allotment from the government each year to do things, there's some huge potholes in the area.
You fix it
For
yourself.
weeks, we've been trying to get Ministry of Works to come and fix it.
You're 1950th on the list of things to do.
Yeah.
Whereas in your community, you're one.
Right, but for a country like ours, where you have so many islands dispersed, there's so much infrastructure to be maintained, it only makes sense to have more of a decentralized approach to it rather than such a centralized approach.
The number
that we
one
have.
thing that I am, aside from this whole notion of democracy, if there's one cause, is the issue of local government. I'm quoting my friend, my cousin, the short person to me, Nicolette Bethel. We need more government. It means government of the people, by the people,
By the
Yes.
people.
not of
Not over
the
the people.
whatever.
Right.
Okay, so this is all, and this is very calm. And by the way, my friends, ladies and gentlemen, you can do it. That's a Bahamian slip right there, and you can do it yourself by just doing it.
Yes.
You don't need to ask to do this. You don't need to ask to fix the street sign. You don't need to ask.
I agree.
They don't care anyway.
Nope.
They're not fixing it, so that's a burden off of them. How do we segue into insurance?
Well, like I say, we don't have.
Well, let me give you an example of the problem.
Well, I can.
We
give
have
you
incredible insurance pool for the dog on hurricanes. Anyway, that's a stupid segue. Timothy, how you doing, man?
I'm fine, thanks, and you.
We were colleagues for many, many years.
We were.
You were my superior, I think.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah,
I
you
think
were the
we
insurance company. I was the broker. You had control over me.
Not really. You had control over me because you could decide to come and give me the business or not.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
it's,
But no, listen, it's a funny field, and I don't think people would have ever seen me in the insurance world. But I was for many years, 16 years.
Yes.
That was, I didn't know you then.
You didn't know me then, and you don't know me now. That's the problem,
Right.
Erica.
And if you don't know me
and it-
right now,
and it
you'll
hurts
never,
me.
never know.
It hurts me. It hurts me a lot. But I think probably people might think I might be one of the last people to defend insurance because insurance gets a bad rap.
Right.
You still getting that rap
Yeah. I think
post Matthew?
the problem with insurance is that the people, the 98, 99% of people that get their issues dealt with without any trouble go away and they don't say anything. The 2% that have a problem are the ones that you hear about.
Yeah.
And that's
The bigger problem is that
reality.
a large percentage of people don't ever claim.
And a large percentage of people don't ever use their policy
Right.
or don't ever read the policy. So
Right.
when it comes down to a claim, then they totally forget. I mean, I used to have the experience where when I first started in the business, I worked on the side of issuing policies on the underwriting
Right.
side. And I would sit there and I'd go through and explain to people, this is what applies and this is what doesn't.
It's a lot of juicy stuff.
Right. And then when I get into claims and people would come in and say, well, they didn't tell me this.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Well,
I know they did because this is the way it's done.
Well,
by
not only
everyone.
that, you have above a D average, you can read it.
Yeah.
No, I think that the average thing is that most people buy insurance because they have to.
Yes.
And they don't ever use. A lot of people don't ever claim. They just don't
Correct.
claim,
Yeah.
so they think it's a waste.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I've seen some stories, man.
Oh,
I see
yeah.
guys like one of my favorite coverages, Erica, is contractors all risk.
Yes.
Are you familiar with that?
No.
No.
But it sounds
See, isn't it
very
sexy?
interesting.
Yeah. Okay.
When the house is under construction.
When your house is under construction, right?
Right.
Now, a lot of Bahamians, Timothy,
Right.
build their own homes
Correct.
from the ground up,
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
and they don't take out insurance.
No.
See, if you have a mortgage, you straight.
Right, because
Yeah.
all of that is covered.
The
No,
bank
no, you
forces
have
you
to take
do it.
insurance.
Right, right.
The bank forces it.
But if you build it, so they don't take this out.
So out of
Right.
pocket, they don't.
They do it. They don't do
Yes.
it. And what have you seen happen as a result of that?
We've seen guys get to just before occupancy stage. There's a fire because the electrical installation is being put in. It's not being done properly.
Boom,
House burns down, and
Gone.
gone. Because they didn't take out contractors all risk.
yeah. So there's a lot of that. If you think about with not having insurance, if you take a loan from
Sexy
the bank,
stuff.
if you take a loan from the bank and the house burns down, the bank still wants you to pay that money back. So if you're paying for a house you're not in, you'll never be able to afford another house. And
Well, that's why the banks make you
Yeah,
buy
have
insurance.
to have-
Of course.
You have to have
Do you
insurance.
hold the banks covered even if it's expired?
if there's an arrangement in place with the banks.
yeah. Like
Some
we had the
banks-
master policies and
Right.
stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Some
What-
banks negotiate an arrangement where if it expires, hold them covered, and they'll pay the premium, and then they'll charge it back to the client.
Do you know?
mean if the policy has if you've let the policy expire,
And you have a bank loan.
right?
Yeah.
And
The
something
bank
happens.
would have had an arrangement either through a master policy or an arrangement.
Yes.
You'd always hold me covered.
Right.
Um,
And then we just send them the bill.
But I had an interesting system. See, this is the sexy thing. If you were my client, you were always covered.
How so?
Because what happened was, every month, if you're an account executive, and this is my account executive lesson tip for the day. If you had, and I don't know if the insurance companies like it or not, but this is what I'm going to tell you. You have 30 days.
Right.
I mean, is that right?
Well, I mean, technically, when it's expired, it's expired.
That's
But
right.
if you're a good client of the company,
Right.
they'll, yeah.
So basically, what I did is I renewed all my clients.
Okay, you
All.
would just
I just renewed 'em.
You wouldn't let it lapse.
I wouldn't let it lapse.
Right.
And then what I would do is every week I would, because it's a pile, it's like 100 policies if you have a lot of clients. I was a
You
sexy
did-
guy. I
you
had a lot of
did,
clients.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So okay. So every week I would go through all of the policies on the system to see who had paid.
Right.
Then I would throw those away because they're covered.
Right, right,
And I would do that every week until I got to the last week
right.
with 30 days in the month.
Yeah.
And then you'd only have maybe 15 left or 20. And then I'd call them
Follow up with those.
and say, what's happening? What's going on? But I only had 15 to call instead of calling 100.
Right.
You're a smart guy. Ed.
It's sexiness. I couldn't help it. I tried to make insurance sexy,
There you go.
But no, it's a lot of interesting stuff. Talk
Right.
to us. The one thing, and we're going to talk some Matthew stuff because obviously we're going to take a break. We'll come back. I want to talk about the one thing that is very sexy, Erica. Average.
Yes.
You know about that?
No.
Yeah.
How come you don't know about this stuff?
I can't wait to hear about
All
it,
right,
though.
go ahead. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here, along with Timothy Ingram, who's your president, right? Managing director. What's your
Managing
title?
director, yes.
Managing director of Summit Insurance. By the way, I saw in the paper. I'm not trying to give you a plug. You A plus. Your
Yes.
A plus rating.
Well, not A plus, A minus.
A
but
minus.
it's,
Okay, all right.
yeah,
Same
it's,
thing. A, just to say it.
Yeah,
Get rid
it's
of the minus,
A minus, excellent
Okay.
from AM
What is
best,
that?
yes.
AMS. Yeah.
AM best.
Okay, AM best. That's right. So listen. Tell us first of all, how badly was the Bahamas impacted from an insurance perspective by Hurricane Matthew, and what would that mean in terms of rates? This is what people want to know. Rates.
Well, overall, when you look at the total amount of damage done, not just including what the local companies insure directly, but for instance, some of the hotels will be insured through offshore insurance programs. You're looking between $400 and $500 million.
Yeah,
in
that's I
losses.
could get that.
Yeah, so that
You can do a call for that.
Like a big-
You can do a constituency council for that.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's what we're actually looking at the moment. Different companies affected in different ways because some companies would have a heavier concentration in New Providence, some would have a heavier concentration in Freeport, Some have more homeowners business, some have more commercial business, and so
So
companies affect it.
Joaquin didn't really affect the rates because it was kind of localized down to Long Island, et
was,
cetera. But
yeah.
is a combination now of Joaquin last year and this year going to cause a major fluctuation, or you expected to see a kind of a minor blip?
Minor to medium blip, I would say.
Minor to medium.
Yeah. So, you know, I
You know that
that's
means
what I
they're going
think.
into medium.
Well,
Right.
obviously, from our perspective, I mean, I pay insurance as well. I don't want to see my insurance go up.
Yeah.
And so it's not, to a certain extent, it's out of our hands.
Do you have any kind of idea, or I mean,
Well, I know what reinsurers would like to do, and I know what we would like to see.
Right.
So right now, there's that.
are we involved? Can we get in on that discussion too? You talking and they talking? Can we get in on that?
Well, it depends on what language you speak. Yeah. But no, as I say, it's, you know, they're a business,
Yeah.
and they look at us and they say, well, you've produced this loss. Some of them, for instance, and this is where it comes down to being a global business. Some of them would have gotten bitten by a $6 billion loss in Canada, for
What
instance.
did they have in Canada? What they had? An earthquake? What they had?
Floods or something?
Floods,
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
floods in Canada. But we in the Bahamas always say whenever we have a loss like that, Canada does us one better. So Canada has the $6 billion loss with floods.
Can we not apply to not be in their region?
Well, you're talking about global
I know.
companies,
It's
huge
global.
global
And the
companies,
reality
so-
is, you can only survive in this business if you're global.
Oh, you can't. We in the Bahamas cannot survive
Yeah.
without reinsurance.
Now-
Impossible.
The reason, first of all, there are a couple of things, and this is not copping out to the man. This is the reality. Is not insurance second only, or is it the other way around, in terms of fraud to credit card business?
Yes.
Which one is
Globally.
number
Credit
one?
card is
Number one.
overtaken us, I think, as
Yeah.
credit cards have become more prevalent. But insurance fraud is a major problem globally. I mean, you know, you read the stories about the insurance fraud, whether it's life insurance or
Yeah.
property and casualty, people faking debts to collect on.
Well, what constitutes insurance fraud?
When you do something not
Let me give
necessarily
you.
illegal.
I can't
but-
even give you an example, because if I gave you an example, people go out and do it tomorrow.
Yeah, no, it's you know, you get people who
Tell me off the
I
air.
take off the.
yeah, you get people jumping on. There was one, and this was a simple one. This guy in the UK, every year he'd go on insurance on his vacation. Each year he went on vacation, he'd take out travel insurance for several $1,000s with a different company. And each year he would have a claim, but the companies didn't know because he
And he
moved
never
around.
reported, right.
Now, at some point, they started to share this information and realized, wait a minute, this guy for the last 10 years has had a £5,000 claim every year.
Free vacation.
Right, exactly. So they then sent a private investigator after him when he's going on his other vacation, and they videotaped him with his suitcase and everything, throwing it off the back of the cruise ship. So things like that.
I mean, like, for instance, you know, it's like the whole fly in the soup thing.
Right. But
You know.
we've had the ones here. I remember some years ago dealing with a claim. This guy brought in an invoice from a big department store in the U.S. for a piece of jewelry, and it said $1,100. And so we looked at him. He was like, "Oh, this seems expensive for the type of jewelry it is." So his downfall was, anyway, I won't tell you what his downfall is, but anyway,
Because otherwise we'll know.
we contacted the store and we said, "Tell us how much this jewelry costs," and they said, "Oh, $100." And what
How much
they
did he have
then
insured
sent
for?
us a copy of the original invoice that he had given them. And what he'd done was he just put a 1 between the dollar sign and the 1, so it went from 100 to 1100.
Yeah.
We've had people who faked car accidents and then come in and say,
Well,
"Oh,
you know, the classic is people who say they're injured
yes,
and they got the crutch. There's
Yep.
a guy, by the way, around this town. I'm not going to call his name. I'm convinced he's faking the crutch.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say who it is.
I know who you're
But
talking
anyway, so but they would follow these people.
Yes,
And then he's playing basketball.
about. Right,
We
right.
had one with a lady that said her back was seriously injured. She couldn't get out of bed or anything like that. So
Yeah.
we had a private investigator follow her. She owned the store, and they saw her going to the wholesaler, picking up bags of
Yeah.
sugar and things, throwing them into a
Yeah.
truck and everything else.
Can I
And
be
that
there when you're
causes
showing them the video, please?
premiums to go
Oh
up.
yeah, for sure. We don't have a money. I always tell people we don't have a money tree, so the
Yeah.
premium has to come from somewhere. And so if I'm paying 20% more in claims than I should be paying, then people are going to.
Do you have a review board? I'd like to be there when you're showing the people the video. Can I do that?
Oh yeah, okay.
Because I know you get fun out of that. So if I could do that, that's the kind of thing I like.
What,
Can I be in charge of that section of the
The
pack?
interesting thing is people will be adamant, and in most of these cases they were adamant. No, this, and you're.
But why
setting
do
me
you
up.
do that to them? You know you have the video.
Right.
Why
But-
don't you just say I have the video?
Yeah, but even in the face of the video,
Yeah.
they're still adamant that no,
That's
no,
what I
no.
mean.
I was
That's
feeling,
not-
I
that
was,
wasn't me.
I was
That's
feeling
my
good that
sister.
day.
Oh, that
but,
day.
you know, and I had to go do that, but then they'll call you back later on and say, you know what, I want to withdraw my claim.
Yeah,
And
because
that's usually the
it's criminal. It's a criminal
is,
offense. It's a
yeah.
felony.
Yes.
You know, like, do you know that? Did you know that arson is not arson until you claim?
Yeah, you're
could burn
entitled
down
to
your
burn
house.
your house down, as long as you're not burning down anyone else's
Yeah.
house. You can burn your own property, but it's when you then attempt to claim for it
Then
that
it
you
becomes-
commit a
Yeah.
crime.
Did you know that?
Did not know that. I'm learning so much today.
Yes. So,
Now- That's why, by the way, it's ironic that people say how insurance is such a ripoff, but it's the most ripped off thing.
right.
Right.
Yeah,
You know, that's-
part of the thing is that a lot of the rules that exist in insurance exist because there are constantly people trying to defraud the
Yeah,
company,
right.
and so
They come up with
you have
new
to have
rules.
rules that.
I mean, I have to say, I had a recent experience with having to claim for home insurance.
Right.
And it was a seamless process.
Yeah.
There
It
was, I mean,
Nothing.
I was surprised at how
Yeah.
incredibly easy it was.
It's when you don't have the right information that's a problem.
Right.
So average. This is my
Yes.
favorite one.
Yep.
This is my favorite.
Oh, average.
Now, Timmy, could you please explain to the folks what average is?
Well, the way I like to always explain it, if you have $10,000 worth of goods in your house, and you go into your insurance company and you decide, well, you know, the most I'm going to lose is $5,000 if someone breaks in. So you decide to insure $5,000 worth of goods, even though you know you have 10. Well, let's say you have a break into your house and $1,000 worth of goods stolen. Now, from your perspective, I've insured for $5,000.
So I covered.
Right, and my claim is only 1,000. So I should get my 1,000.
500. You get
Right.
500.
Yeah. So what basically the average rule says that if you have only insured 50% of your contents, then only 50% of your contents
That's covered.
are covered. So when the contents are stolen, whatever is stolen, only 50% of that is covered.
And you know why?
So that's the rule.
Tell me
Let me
why.
tell you why. I used to use the wall example.
Yes.
Which ones did they steal? Did they steal the one that you're covering or the ones that I'm covering? So
Exactly.
rather than have that discussion,
Yes.
we'll just split it.
Yeah, well,
Because
the difference.
the company could argue that $1,000
That's
worth
your
of stuff
stuff.
they stole that came from the 5,000 that's not insured.
Yeah. So you split
So
it.
we say,
Now,
okay,
isn't
let's-
that nice?
Okay, so I have a question. I'm
split
since
the
I'm the
baby.
only civilian here,
Civilian.
right?
No, Kendrick is
Well,
Kendrick.
Kendrick,
Kendrick, were
I'm
you in the
gonna
insurance
ask for
business?
both of us,
Kendrick,
okay?
Were you in the
ask the
insurance?
questions.
Insurance policies. Some of them are just prohibitive when it comes to cost, right? It's expensive.
It depends
it's
on
too
the risk.
much, right?
And it's
So
relative.
if you have, to get house insurance, for
Right.
the building,
Yes.
and anything attached to the building is one thing, and then when you get content insurance, it's
Right.
the price goes way up. So how do you balance that as a consumer, as a regular consumer like myself? I can't afford to insure all the flat screen TVs and computers in my house, but
Right.
I want to have some of it covered. Or what do you do? How do you, when you go on a huge vacation, you think, oh, do I really need to get travel insurance?
Right.
You know?
Well, I mean, just starting at the end there, the vacation, if it's on a huge vacation, you might want to get travel insurance. If you've invested $10, $15, $20,000 in a vacation, you don't want to get to near the end. We had one, for instance, a guy was taking his mom on a 3-week vacation. They were doing a cruise, Alaskan cruise, and then they were staying in the Northwest. And a week before they were supposed to go, she fell down and broke her hip. Couldn't travel. So
No refundable.
it was a non-refundable situation. And so there you had a situation where he was able to claim.
I wish our listeners could see Edward.
Yeah, he was able to claim for that. Now, with
But if you're
regards,
just going to Miami, forget
no,
it.
it's not worth
Right,
it for short trips.
but you
like
would
that.
Big
you would
trips.
say it's worth it.
Yeah, big
for,
trips,
for
definitely.
big trips, yeah.
Because it's all a bunch of stuff in there, like loss of luggage, money,
Exactly.
all kinds of things.
Yeah,
Like that's the guy I
repatriation.
thought his
And then
luggage.
when it happens and
Yeah.
you don't
It
have any
happens.
recourse,
Ticket
that's a
price, all
serious
sort of
blow.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, as the other question,
And that's
The-
just
the-
an example, the content.
no
Yeah.
problem. First of all, let me give you a thing. What you look at the average cost of a mortgage in this country these days, it's probably 6%, maybe.
You mean the
5.5,
mortgage?
6%.
You mean the
Mortgage
interest
rates.
rates?
Yeah.
Yeah.
6%. So if you borrow $100,000 from the bank, you're paying them 6% on that a year. It's decreasing, obviously. Your insurance rate, by contrast, is about 1.25%.
Right.
So it's about a quarter or maybe less of what you're paying. So the relative cost for insurance compared to the interest. So we're charging you 1.25% to use our capital to protect your building in case something happens. The
Right.
bank is charging you 6% to use their capital to purchase. So the relative cost is not hugely expensive.
Right.
But most companies offer different levels of cover from the perspective that if you want hurricane cover, it's going to cost you 1.25%. But if you say, well, you know what, I think I could do without the hurricane cover, I'll just take something fire and theft and all the other stuff. And so that will then cost you somewhere around 0.75%.
But that so you have to assess your risk of what
You
you
have
can
to
afford.
assess your
But
risk.
that brings into effect another sexy term:
What's that, Ed?
proximate cause.
Yes.
Oh.
What caused it? Yes. What caused the loss?
See,
Yes.
because now, so I'll lead Timmy into this. So you decide that you don't want to have. This is a great topic. People don't understand this stuff because they don't listen to it, and it's very basic.
And they don't
Yeah.
read the policy.
And they don't read the policy.
Yeah.
But let me look at what happened in the hurricane. So you go, I'm not taking out hurricane insurance. I don't have a mortgage,
Right.
but I have fire, I have
In
flood.
a hurricane
Yep.
zone. But
Okay,
anyway.
no,
right.
Right.
no. I have fire insurance. I have flood insurance, but I didn't take out hurricane because you're thinking hurricane is wind, right? And now, Timmy, in the hurricane,
There's a flood.
a fire happens or a
Well,
flood happens.
In the hurricane, let's say there's let's do with the flooding first. The flooding, usually if there are two perils of flood in your insurance policy. There's one flooding on its own, just water rising.
Like
and there's
rain, like effects of rain.
or
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
other-
And then
Or
there's,
river.
there's another flooding connected with hurricane. So usually if you haven't taken hurricane cover, the flooding connected with a hurricane is not covered.
you wouldn't be covered.
Right.
So anything
Correct.
that happens within the hurricane, if a fire,
If you've taken out fire, and let's say you got your candle there and the candle blows over, and it's determined that the hurricane caused that candle to blow over, and your policy covers any damage caused by a hurricane, then that damage is linked back. And this isn't just what insurance companies say. These are tested cases in the court of law where they say, well, the cause went back to the original
hurricane.
thing. The classic case on this is a case in Jamaica. A guy had fire cover. He didn't have earthquake cover. And he had his, and this goes back to like the 1800s, and it's been confirmed by case after case after case. Tootle Broadhurst, I think is the name of it.
Total.
Yes. So the earthquake came along, shakes the house. The candle or the lamp falls over, burns the house down.
right?
He has fire cover but doesn't have earthquake cover. The court ruled that the cause of his loss was earthquake, even though because the earthquake led to the fire. Without the earthquake, there wouldn't have been a fire. Right. So they said that there's an active chain of events here, and we can trace the origin of that chain back to the earthquake.
Okay.
And since the earthquake was the trigger, then whatever happened after the earthquake is not covered.
So
Proximate
the advice,
clause.
So the
Love
advice
it.
is to read your policy.
Right.
The
To know
advice
your
is
stuff.
To know your
yes.
stuff.
And I always say, listen, make sure you're dealing with a good agent who can sit with you and explain your policy. You're paying them a commission to do that. So sit there and say, listen, I need you to go through this with me, and I need you to explain this to me. And if something doesn't make sense, ask questions.
We're going to take a break. We'll come back with some more sexy terms in the insurance. We'll be right back. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here along with Erica Wells Cox, Kendrick Williams, Timothy Ingram, Managing Director of Summit. And we're here talking about the sexy side of insurance. And, let's start off with a little sexy occurrence. I had, Timothy, in my home, a claim as a result of impact from fallen trees. There's a clause in your policy, a homeowner's policy, that literally says impact from fallen trees.
Yep.
Okay? Isn't that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, I had a tree fall over and hit my roof.
Mm-hmm.
So it just so happened it was around the time a storm was traveling. And so when I made my claim, I made a claim. You filled out the claim form. Very simple. And they said, well, that'll be 2.5% of the sum insured because it's 2%? 2% of the sum insured because this is while there was a hurricane.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, in that case, I wouldn't even have had cover because the deductible was,
so high.
So I thought to myself, hold on a second now. This tree fell down on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
And,
The hurricane was when?
The hurricane was like
Thursday.
Saturday.
Right.
And it wasn't even a hurricane. It was a tropical storm.
Okay.
And then I thought, no, I'm not paying anything. They're going to pay me everything. And why?
Mm-hmm.
Because in order for there to be a hurricane, the winds must be more than 39 miles an hour.
Yep. That's the definition. Yeah.
Wow.
And it was not 39 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And they could prove it
And I think
because they could go to the Met Office
And
and they could
what
say what
was-
time the winds were, and my winds were nowhere near 30 miles an
And
hour.
I think
And so you got
think
it.
And I didn't have to pay a
there's
deductible.
one key word in
Wow.
there as well. Sustained.
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 Yes, sustained.
So really, as a consumer, you really need to be careful.
Yes.
You need to know your stuff.
Just know your stuff.
You
Know your
need
stuff.
to read.
And get a good agent that you feel comfortable with, so that if something goes wrong, you pick up the phone, you call them, and you describe
That is
what
the key.
happened.
That is
Because
the
I
key.
think
And
most
say-
people, honestly, most people feel, well, this system is working against me.
No.
Right.
And,
No,
and
it's-
Timmy and Timmy is the insurance company, so he's doing a
Right.
good job telling us. But the real important key player in this is your account executive,
Right.
because that's
Yes.
the person you should call first.
That's the point of contact. Yeah.
Okay, that's the
always
person. You
the
shouldn't
point
call
of
the
contact.
claims department first or whatever. You should call your account executive, and they're going to tell you what your policy covers.
Yeah.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, that's the best place to start. Call your
And of course, we're
executive.
talking general insurance. There's a whole range of other insurances, but this
Yeah.
is the one that impacts people most. Motor insurance.
Correct.
Do
Most
you-
people have a traffic accident at some point,
Yeah.
so it's motor insurance. That's the.
Do you know? Can I throw a shout out to myself?
Yeah, sure.
Do you know that
It's
I
your
invented?
show.
Do you, no, but I'm asking your permission.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
So I know
this is democracy.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm asking the people's permission.
Okay, sure.
Do
Go
you
ahead.
know? I didn't invent the concept of this because the concept was invented. The no claims bonus discount.
Right.
Yeah, but I invented the Comprehensive Plus title.
Yes, you
Were
do.
you aware of that?
Yeah.
So comprehensive plus is what?
It includes additional covers like a rental car. It might include things.
No claim bonus
No
protection.
claims. If you have one accident, you don't lose your no claims discount, so your premium doesn't go up after one accident in say 3 years. And
You don't know me,
other
Erica.
perks like
I
that.
do.
Yes.
This has been a most enlightening show.
Ed was very inventive. I remember one of the covers he always would approach us on as well. If there were concerts going on, there was one at Compass Point out west, I think.
Pluvius?
Pluvius, yes. We've changed the name of it. I can't remember the name of it now. Event cancellation coverage, basically. So these folks at Compass Point were having a concert, and they'd spent a whole bunch of money to get the artist here for one night to do it. Whether if he performed or not, they had to pay him the money. But if it rained, he couldn't perform because it was an outdoor concert. And so Ed would call us and say, listen, we need to cover this. These folks want to cover their costs so that they don't lose money. They're not necessarily looking to make money on insurance, but they don't want to lose $20,000 having paid this artist to come and not be able to do the concert. And so through him, we'd issue these covers to these organizers of concerts and different events so that if it rained cats and dogs, then
But you did it with assessing the risk because obviously
yeah.
you got rain weather reports and forecasts, et cetera,
yeah.
et cetera.
And it also would cover things, the performer becoming ill and that kind of thing.
Right.
And that's where we do a bit of background check into the performer. You see somebody who got on the screen, on stage, did political rants and walked off on a regular basis, then you might say no.
There's all sorts of little fun things like hole-in-one insurance. These are prize indemnities. When you see someone offer a prize for $1 million.
At basketball, you see it a lot in the States with basketball games, where if you could hit this shot from half court, you win $1 million. That's usually done with an insurance policy.
Yeah. Because the insurance is going to get like, what, 2%, 3%, 5% of the $1 million, right? So they're going to get a $5,000 premium.
Right.
But the risk of it happening is
zilch.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Right. We've had some.
Well, not that it's not going to happen.
It's going to happen,
It's very rare, yeah.
So the insurance company pays. The basketball guy doesn't pay.
Right. So you get these hole-in-ones during golf tournaments where if a golfer gets a hole-in-one on a particular hole, he wins a BMW or something. The organizers just take out an insurance policy, and if someone does it, then they win.
Yeah. I think the having all of this fun with insurance is great, but I think the biggest thing that people need to understand, and it is a big thing, is that while you may not think that there's a problem, when it happens, it's catastrophic to you.
Yes.
And you will never recover.
Yep.
And the reason and the fact of the matter is you're pooling resources.
Yes.
So it allows for that coverage to be cheap. And the reality is, listen, if you're paying $1,000 a year on a $100,000 home, I'm just using that example.
Yep.
That's 100 years you have to save that.
Yes.
But the fire could happen in the third year.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's true.
So people, they've got to really have and they got to say, well, you know what? I'm willing to lose my house.
Yep.
I mean, and that's
things happen.
yeah.
Things happen. Things happen.
So those are things to me that are most important. It's actually a very important thing to have.
It is, and as our society changes a lot more, it becomes even more critical for some things.
What percentage of the country, what percentage of people do you think are insured?
Right now, I'd say probably 40 to 50%.
When you say, you mean what? Their homes are insured or what?
The home, we're talking about homes.
Property,
Yes.
I mean, you have to have your car insured.
Yeah.
You have to have your car insured.
But even then, people. Well, remember when we used to have Motor Road Act, right? People would take on a minimal.
Yep.
But if you got up to where 100% of the people were insured, I mean, worthwhile risk.
Yes.
Would insurance rates be cheaper?
Yes.
So
just the law of large numbers. If you get more people insuring and there's more money going into the pot, then the insurance rate should.
And the odds are then diminished because there's less people percentage-wise that are going to be affected by a claim.
Yeah. Exactly. That's exactly it.
And is the only reason people don't get insured is financial, or is it just more of a philosophical thing with people?
I think for 95% of people, it's financial.
Okay.
I think most people look at it and say, well, they have to make a choice on what they're going to spend this money on.
Right.
Sometimes it's not a forced choice. It's, they prefer to go to Miami and have a good time than to put the $2,000 on their insurance.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's that kind of choice. But they see insurance as a luxury or something that you almost have to hold a gun to the head.
When is it not a luxury? Like what if you had to say, okay, I could insure, I have to insure my car, I have to insure my house if I have a mortgage.
Right.
Health insurance, what do you think you can do without, or what would you advise people that they absolutely should have?
You should have at least fire insurance fire is the most catastrophic thing that can happen to your house.
Yeah, because you
it can be wiped out
loss,
within an hour. You can get very significant damage from hurricanes as well.
Mm-hmm.
From hurricanes, if you go through and you take a lot of precautions with your house, there are precautions you can take, maybe spend extra money to do certain things to it. You reduce the risk of it.
Because you're not going to have you're really not going to have a total loss
No,
in many cases,
No,
right?
in most cases, very, very rarely do you see a total loss in a hurricane, but you do see it in fires.
Right.
And hurricanes, very rarely do you see even a 50% of the value loss. So you're going to see part of the roof or the roof blown
Right.
off and some damage. But the main structure of the house, for the most part, I saw, I think, just 1 or 2 instances in this storm where there was structural damage to the house. And so for the most part, it's the roof gone. But if someone mentioned to me, an engineer from the U.S. came down through Rotary, and we had them looking at these things. He said, about 70% of your damage would have been avoided if your shingles had been properly installed.
Yeah.
He said most of the shingles have 3 to 4 nails in it, when they should have anywhere from 6 to 12 nails in it. He said if you had the proper nailing done on the shingles do not come off.
I had a wooden roof. My shingle didn't come off. Not a single shingle came off.
Yeah, if they're nailed properly. He said the instructions are right there on the package. You just read them. But
Shoddy workmanship.
Exactly. So if you do all the necessary things like that, you might decide, well, I've done all of this stuff. I put elastomeric paint on my roof. Elastomeric paint is like a rubber membrane over your roof. You paint it on, it keeps everything intact. And so you might decide, well, I don't need it. So
So that's the thing. People can also determine with the insurer's permission to do certain things like exclude the foundation.
Exactly.
So that's
Take a
10 or
bigger
15%. Take a bigger deductible.
which some people do.
Yeah. Because you're just trying to
So there are
protect
ways-
against total catastrophe.
Right. So there are things you can work around. And if you have certain things in your house, like let's say you have hurricane shutters or you have, a stone
Fire
house
alarms.
as opposed to a wooden house, you have an alarm system and fire alarms. That helps with bringing the premium down.
The construction of the house and the material of the roof of the house are
It's
the
the
two
two
main
things,
that at the moment, no company, as far as I'm aware, there might be 1 or 2, though, having said that, give deductibles for hurricane shutters and those kinds of things.
Also, too, there's premium financing. A lot of companies do that.
Most companies now do that.
Yeah.
So
Well, listen, it's see, I told you,
Yeah,
it's sexy stuff.
Yep.
Sexy stuff.
And I learned so much about you today.
Yeah, there you go.
You've gone up even more.
Lord of mercy, it's good. It's good. Listen, it just goes to show, people should take the time just to learn about what's going on around them, and you just limit your exposure to things.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it affects you. You're paying money.
Yeah,
you
you're paying a
you should know
significant-
about what you're paying your money
And it's
for.
most people, the home is the biggest asset they own. So it's worth it to sit down and take a couple hours to go through your protection of that.
And I would venture to say, and again, this is probably an unlikely source, people thinking this, but most of the cases where you see people say things like, I'm getting ripped off, it's simply because they were not aware of what they were covered for, that they weren't covered for. And so when they get a claim rejected, a valid claim rejected, that is not to say that there may be unscrupulous companies that don't do things right. But in a legitimate company, when you get rejected, it's because you weren't covered.
Right. Yeah.
So.
And of course, insurance for government property is a whole other topic for a whole other day. We won't.
Governments don't insure.
Yeah,
they have their tax dollars.
Not true. In Ecuador, in fact, they are required. They passed a law. They had so much damage from storms, so they actually passed a law that the government has to insure.
Sure, okay.
And if they don't, the person in the government office responsible for it
goes to jail. I like that. I like that from Ecuador.
Yes.
Okay. Listen, Timothy, thank you very much for coming by.
No problem.
I thought to myself, how are we going to make this? How are we going to talk about insurance?
Yep.
But it's easy stuff. It's easy stuff.
Yeah.
So, Kendrick, did you learn some stuff? Go out and get your house insured. All right. Thank you, Erica. We'll see you next week as well because Rogan is still incapacitated, at least to this point. Yeah. Timothy, thank you for coming by. We'll don't forget to wear that black tomorrow, Timothy.
Yes, definitely
Erica,
wear black.
Black.
And we're also doing our Movember thing that the radio house
station is doing.
Yeah, we're doing that down at Green Parrot tomorrow from 5 to 9. It's a PSA blood test. We're not doing the digital test down there tomorrow.
Yeah, the digital. That doesn't mean like clocks.
No.
That means your finger up your butt. All right. All right. See ya.
Okay.